You are not searching for love the way you think you are. You are trying to fill something that never had a name. And that is why no person ever feels enough to stay. Because at the beginning, everything feels too intense, almost magical. But then something starts to feel missing, something you cannot even explain, and that absence grows in silence. As if something is always one step beyond your reach. You give yourself, you try harder, you feel more. Yet everything still feels empty. And the strangest part is that this emptiness does not disappear even when you're loved. Not when someone stays, not even when everything seems to be working. Because deep down it is not about the other person, but that is still not clear within you. So you try again. Another person, another story, another silent promise that this time it will be different. But it is not. It never is. And that begins to exhaust you, not love. But the repetition, the feeling of always being in the same place, living different versions of the same pain, you start to question what is wrong, if it is you or the people you choose. But maybe the question is reversed. Maybe it is not about finding the right person, but about something inside you that has not yet been seen, something you try to silence with presence, with affection, with intensity, yet it continues to exist. And perhaps this is the hardest part to accept. The emptiness does not appear when you are alone. It appears when you are with someone, because that is when it becomes impossible to ignore. And then you feel that even with someone beside you, there is still a space no one can reach, and that hurts. But it also reveals something you have not yet been willing to face, something that did not come from the other, and something the other can never fill. This emptiness was not born in the present. It echoes from something older. Something you learned to carry without realizing it, like an inner space left open, waiting to be filled, but never truly seen. So you begin to project without knowing. You look at someone and you see more than what is actually there. You see what you feel is missing within you. And that is why the intensity comes so quickly, because it is not only about the other, it is about what you placed into them, like a distorted mirror that reflects not who they are, but who you need them to be. And in that reflection, you attach, you believe, you surrender. But over time, the mirror begins to fail. The image starts to break, and what you see no longer sustains what you felt. Then comes frustration, confusion, a pain that feels new, but it is not. It has been there before, in other stories, with other people, with other faces, yet always with the same feeling, like a cycle repeating itself, changing only the details. Because the pattern is not outside, it is within, and this is the most delicate point. You are not choosing wrong by accident. You are being guided by something you do not yet understand. Something that seeks recognition, something that wants to be seen, but that you try to resolve outside. And while that happens, the emptiness remains, because it does not respond to the love you receive. It responds to what has not yet been integrated. And that is why no relationship ever feels enough, because it does not touch the right place. There comes a moment when something begins to reveal itself, not as a clear answer, but as a subtle perception, that maybe the problem was never love, but the way it was used as an attempt to fill and not as a true encounter. This is where something important emerges. The idea of projection. In analytical psychology, you do not fall in love only with the person. You fall in love with what you unconsciously place into them, parts of yourself, unlived parts, forgotten parts, and that creates a powerful illusion because it feels like love. But often, it is identification with your own emptiness, and when that projection begins to fall apart, pain appears, not because the other has changed, but because the image you sustained can no longer hold, and at that point, you feel like you lost something, but maybe it was never truly yours. Carl Jung expresses this clearly. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Carl Jung. And this understanding is not comfortable because it dismantles the idea that the other was the answer. It reveals that the emptiness was not caused by the absence of someone, but by the absence of connection with yourself. And that changes everything, because now the pain is no longer about loss, but about revelation, a silent revelation. Yet deeply transformative, as this perception begins to settle, something inside slows down, not because everything has been solved, but because something has finally been recognized. The emptiness is no longer an enemy. It becomes a space that does not need to be filled, but understood. And that changes the way you approach others. It is no longer a desperate search, but a more complete presence, more conscious, less burdened by expectations. You still feel. You still connect, but there is a subtle difference. You no longer try to lose yourself to feel whole. You begin to realize that what you were searching for outside was a reflection of something inside asking for attention. And that does not bring immediate answers, but it brings silence. A different kind of silence, deeper, more stable, like the ocean when there is no wind. And in that silence, you begin to feel something new, not as intensity, but as presence, not as need, but as choice. And perhaps that is where love begins to change form, not as something that fills, but as something that meets without invading, without replacing, without trying to occupy what is inherently yours. And in the end, the emptiness is still there. But it no longer frightens you. It simply exists as an inner space you can now look at without running, without hiding, without trying to fill it. If this thought resonated with you, write the word integration in the comments, because it is through integration that emptiness stops being absence and becomes awareness. And perhaps it is in that silence that something within you finally begins to hear itself